Okay, the time has come. We're talking about influence. Here are some of my favorite tips. Motivational filters. So there are certain changes that you can make in your language that you're saying the same thing, but how you're saying it changes their perception of it. You're framing your argument differently. So these are some of the main ways you can easily change your frame. The first one is moving towards something versus away from something. We will either move toward pleasure or away from pain. This is very basic primal thinking in our brains, but it's so deep in our subconscious that we really don't think about it that way. When you have a list of things to do and you procrastinate, you're moving towards the pleasure of not having to do the thing until something reaches that deadline where there's going to be a huge consequence if you don't freaking do that thing. Well, now you're moving away from the pain of what would come if you don't check that thing off of your list. Towards pleasure, away from pain. So when you're motivating somebody, pay attention to how they frame what they talk about. Is it talking, or do they mention, oh, I'm really excited about this is going to be great? Or do they say, yeah, I mean, if we don't get this done, then X, Y, and Z will happen, and then Charlie's going to be really upset, so we better get this done pretty soon. It tells you how this person perceives the world. Some people are more inclined to move away from pain. Some people are more inclined to move towards pleasure. So pay attention to how they speak, and you'll pick up on these things. And then when you say, I need this thing done, then instead of just saying, I need this thing done, if they're towards pleasure, you can say, I need this thing done, and then you know what? You can get like an hour free, take an extra hour at lunch. Oh, okay. Versus if it's away from pain, I really need this thing done, or else this is really going to pile up on your desk, and quite frankly, we may need to have a discussion pretty soon about it. Oh, okay. You're saying the same thing. I need this thing done. You're just framing it differently. Next is internal versus external motivators. So some people will do something because it makes them feel good. They get energized by it. They have happy, flowy emotions about it, whatever it may be. Others are more motivated by external factors. What people will say about you, how people perceive you, things that you'll be able to do. All those are the two different schools of thought. So there's a fellow speaker and author, Sally Hogshead. I don't know if you've heard of her. She wrote the book Fascinate. It's a personality profile thing, sort of, but it's like what makes you fascinating. And I remember that one of the values, or one of the things that people can strive for, is prestige. And usually that person who values prestige is more that external person. This is more than likely the person that drives the Porsche, that has the really expensive suit, that has the fancy watch, and loves to talk about the fancy watch and the story behind the fancy watch, and how we got a special deal on the fancy watch, and the guy didn't know what was coming with this fancy watch. This is an external person. So if I need to influence that person, then I would bring up like how people would see you, how perceptions would change, how people would talk about you even after the event is over, things along those lines. Options versus procedures. So some people value their sense of freedom and their sense of choice. Some people really value, this is how things are done, this is the tradition, this is the way we should do things. So paying attention to that person, then you can figure out, okay, if I need to get this person to do something, then should I offer them a few options, and we'll talk about options later on, or should I give them very specific details of how we should follow through? Again, it's important to notice them and notice yourself. Because if you're a person that loves options, then when you're running the meeting, you talk about, oh, we could do this, we could do that, we could do this. You're driving the procedural person nuts. They're like, just pick a lane and let's go down. Right? So you have a mismatch of communication. Your job as a leader is to be an authentic chameleon, identify that, and adjust